There are moments in Street Fighter that don't feel like battles, they feel like warnings. A world swallowed by an endless tide, a masked figure who watches but never speaks, a prophet's vision of something terrible yet to come. Ingrid and Crimson Viper are two of the most enigmatic figures in this world. One is an outsider who appears without origin, speaking of fate, time, and cosmic order. The other, a covert agent working across factions, whose mission may be tied to forces far larger than she realizes. This video is a bit different to my previous videos, sparked from discussions in the comments of my Q&G video. We'll explore who these characters are as per usual, but then theorize how their paths may connect to Street Fighter's most mysterious characters, G, Q, and the catastrophic visions as seen in Rose's Street Fighter V story. I look forward to reading your thoughts and own theories down in the comments below. Crimson Viper first appeared in Street Fighter IV, lethal, stylish, with an outfit hiding far more than it revealed. On the surface, she was a high-ranking agent of SIN, the weapon manufacturing and development branch of Shadaloo. Having spent years rising through its ranks, she would head up the development of a state-of-the-art battlesuit, equipped with electrified gauntlets, seismic boots, and incendiary tech. Because of her work on the project, and the fact only she could use it with 100% efficiency, Viper was given the privilege of testing it out herself. In reality, however, Viper was deep undercover, working as a spy for the US government, with a mission to report on the organization's weapons development, in order to stay ahead of global threats. Viper doesn't just lead a dangerous dual life, she's also a mother, juggling school runs between infiltration missions. Before the events of Street Fighter IV, Viper would be tasked by SIN to gather intel on fighters from around the world, specifically targeting Ryu in order to release the Satsui no Hado within, in order to discover its true potential. She would do whatever it took to complete her task, posing as a journalist named Maya to interview Ryu's friend and rival, Ken Masters, and even, when that failed, approaching Ken's pregnant wife, Eliza, in order to gain information and plant a bug at the Master's residence. Eventually, she tracks down the wandering warrior, Ryu, with a surveillance team ready to analyze his abilities. Cammy intervenes, however, warning Ryu not to engage, as she is trying to release his dark powers. Unprepared for Viper's battlesuit, Cammy is easily overpowered, and her beating unleashes the Satsui no Hado within Ryu. At first, Viper seems glad to have brought out this legendary power, but she soon realizes how much she has underestimated a Ryu fueled with evil intent, and is forced to retreat. But she doesn't simply give up. Showing us just how far she is willing to go to complete her mission, C Viper takes Ken's wife Eliza, holding her hostage on a ship in exchange for Ryu, all so that Seth, the leader of SIN, can fight him himself. Her actions paint a picture of an all-business agent, though she isn't without a softer side. When it's clear that Ryu is aboard the ship, she doesn't continue to keep her from Ken. Instead, she simply leaves. In Street Fighter IV proper, C Viper enters the World Fighting Tournament, which was organized by Seth, in order to test the battlesuit against the world's best fighters, which even includes Dan Hibiki. But she's not just here to test her cutting-edge suit. She's still tasked with gathering data on fighters, as well as trying to recruit them, and her success in the tournament will lead to her being put in charge of the Bleach project, a technology which causes the mitochondria within a subject's body to overflow with key energy. In Seth's own words,
"The moisture within living tissue begins to boil, causing an expansion that detonates the cells from within. What a fantastic invention it is."
One fighter on her list is the oiled-up Turkish wrestler Hakan, who Viper takes an instant dislike to, viewing him as simply short and angry. She later crosses paths with Chun-Li, with each getting annoyed at the other for impeding their respective missions. Viper meets Cammy again, though the Delta Red member doesn't mention their previous encounter. And she even crosses paths with Bison, who's intrigued by her battlesuit and demands it for himself. It's unclear who wins, but Viper makes it out of the encounter, still in possession of the battlesuit. Following Seth's defeat at the end of the tournament, Viper returns to the SIM base and attempts to retrieve data on the Bleach project, but she arrives to find Cammy deleting the data. She attempts to stop her by pointing a gun at her head, but Cammy deletes it anyway, and Viper walks away, lamenting the years of investigation that has gone down the drain. Then in the aftermath, Viper informs her contact at the CIA that 15, referring to Seth, has been eliminated, and the remaining 26 are in her sights. That would not be the last we saw of Viper, however, and in Street Fighter V, she would appear once more, not a part of the roster, but as a spy master, cameoing in multiple character stories. In Rashid's story, she contacts him via text, warning that it's best not to get involved with Shadaloo, sending him GPS coordinates for the location of Ryu in order to further test his abilities. Viper continues to keep tabs on Bison and Shadaloo, even infiltrating the organization's base, though Bison quickly senses her presence, forcing her to retreat. She also crosses paths with Juri, referring to her as Spider, warning her she's only not behind bars because she isn't the target, and to stop interfering with her investigation. This conflicts somewhat with Juri's account of their relationship in Street Fighter VI, where she says that they began working together after the fall of SIN, infiltrating other organizations and taking them down from within for fun and profit. Juri seems convinced Viper isn't loyal to anyone, not even the agency she works for. Finally, Viper also approaches the secret society's Urien in the abandoned SIN lab, where she questions his reason for being there, and reveals she is investigating him and his organization. Once again, Viper is forced to retreat when Urien unleashes a barrage of Aegis reflectors at her. While never mentioned in the game directly, Capcom's online character guides from the time reveal that she was actively investigating Q. And with G, Q's possible counterpart rising, seemingly out of nowhere, preaching unity on his social media channel, all the while with golden patterns in the shape of the world's continents gliding across his skin, Viper may be the only character with the abilities to uncover the connection between the two characters, whether she realizes she's on the path to doing so or not. More than just a supporting player, Viper moves like an unseen hand behind many of Street Fighter's biggest events, from the downfall of SIN, to the surveillance of Shadaloo and the Black Moons incident, to the mystery of Q. Viper is always there, watching and waiting. And if the world truly is on the brink of collapse, if the apocalyptic vision of the ocean swallowing the earth gleamed in Rose the Fortune Teller's Street Fighter V story is true, then Crimson Viper may be one of the few with the information, the reach, and the firepower to stop it, or survive it. But where Viper operates in shadow and subterfuge, the next figure exists almost outside of time itself. Her appearances are rare, her origins disputed, and her powers seem to defy both science and sorcery. To some, she's a divine protector, to others a narrative outlier that doesn't belong. But as the world inches towards collapse, Ingrid's role becomes harder to ignore. Known by some as the Eternal Goddess, Ingrid's inclusion into the Street Fighter universe was far from accepted, having manifested as though stepping in from another dimension entirely. Her first inclusion in Street Fighter's world proper would be the PSP version of Alpha 3 Max, where she stood apart from the rest of the cast. Determined, radiant, and incomprehensibly powerful. Before that, however, Ingrid was initially set to appear in the cancelled fighting game Capcom Fighting All-Stars, instead debuting later in Capcom Fighting Evolution, where, in her ending, we see her banishing Pyron, the big bad from Darkstalkers. Her story in All-Stars, however, was going to revolve around defusing an atomic bomb dubbed the Laughing Sun, hidden within Metro City by a character known as Death. Ingrid would be one of a group of so-called code holders, each with their own special powers and abilities, tasked by Metro City Mayor Mike Hagar to locate the bomb and save the city. When she appeared within Alpha 3 Max, though, it didn't take long for speculation to spiral, with one persistent theory claiming Ingrid is the source of psycho power, a being from beyond time who M. Bison somehow stole power from. But Street Fighter's director, Takayuki Nakayama, seems to have a different take on this, stating in a Twitter post that Ingrid doesn't use psycho power, but something else entirely. He would then go on to reply somewhat cryptically to someone who raised the point that Ingrid states in her Alpha 3 ending, "It has always been my power," with, "The Alpha 3 story is a bit irregular. She appears in 3 different games, one of which is unfinished, each with a different background. So what does that mean?" Whatever Ingrid's powers may be, there is mention of a source for all the powers found within the Street Fighter universe. In the side reader, Musings on a Still Night, the ancient hermit Oro and the not-as-ancient yogi Dalzim discuss this, with Oro even being able to imitate the Satsui no Hado. He states, "You know what I think? These powers are all the same when you follow them to their root. When Ingrid enters the Street Fighter timeline, she arrives on Earth desperate to find something, lest something terrible might happen. During her search, she crosses paths with Ryu, who clearly isn't himself. She senses a familiar dark power within him, and scolds him for thinking that he could control such a power. However, after defeating him, she realizes that he had been controlled by someone else. Ryu gives her a name, Bison, who she had heard whispers of before. Before leaving, she hints that she already knows who Ryu is, and the path that he is on. As Ingrid closes in on Bison, she encounters Rose, who attempts to read her future. However, all the Fortune Seer can see is a white haze, suggesting Ingrid does not belong in this universe, but perhaps exists outside of it. It's here that Ingrid references Psycho Power, and that the power is hers, and she must retrieve it. It's Rose's task, however, to seal away that power, and so the pair come to blows. After the fight, Ingrid reassures Rose that the power will be safe in our custody, which implies Ingrid may be part of some multiversal enforcement agency, charged with keeping the most dangerous powers out of the hands of those unsuitable to use it. She also says that defeating Bison won't take 15 minutes, suggesting her power level is off the charts. Their exchange ends with Ingrid telling Rose to remember her as a messenger from the stars. Ingrid then faces off against Bison, who notes her seal, recognizing her as being linked to the Psycho Drive. Ingrid scoffs at the ridiculous name that Bison has given the power, noting he will never be able to control it. Ingrid defeats him, and Bison retreats back to the Psycho Drive. She easily catches up to him, and discovers Bison's machine is indeed powered by one of her crests. Overloading the machine, Ingrid destroys Bison, noting she's spent too much time on this and has to get back to work, leaving Earth with the Psycho Drive. In the end credits, we see Ingrid reading a notebook that appears to contain places in time she needs to visit. Up next is the year 21X, but she becomes distracted when she witnesses Ryu in the future, noting that he's up to something interesting, perhaps trying to learn how to work a smartphone, a far greater challenge than any opponent. So who is Ingrid, and what is her power exactly? Both are never really defined, but what we see suggests that she has dominion over time, space, and cosmic energy. She appears and vanishes at will, and speaks with the calm detachment of a being who already knows how things will end. Her role seems to be that of a cosmic cop, keeping the balance of the universe in check, perhaps even assigned to specifically watch over Earth's timeline. With Rose's vision of the Earth's destruction in the final season of Street Fighter V, and the recent announcement that she will soon be part of Street Fighter VI's roster, a chilling possibility arises. What if someone has acquired a power they shouldn't have? One they might not be able to control, and might that be why the world is doomed to end? Ingrid was not seen in Rose's vision, but her arrival at the edge of catastrophe, her unknowable power, and her watchful nature all point to something ancient stirring beneath the surface of the Street Fighter universe. Perhaps her very presence is to act as a narrative pressure valve, a tool for resetting balance when things spiral too far toward destruction. Her inclusion in Street Fighter VI could reveal parts of the franchise's lore that has remained hidden, in some cases, for decades. While Ingrid may exist on the edges of time, and Viper navigates the corridors of global power, there's a storm quietly brewing beneath it all. A vision shared by two very different figures, Rose and G. In Street Fighter V, Rose receives a premonition of the future. Not a cosmic explosion, nor hellfire or monsters, but something quieter, a world swallowed by a vast, rising ocean, as if a giant glacier fell into its seas, and civilization flooded and erased. G, a man who draws power from the earth itself, had also witnessed this same vision, and behind him, veiled in shadow, stands a familiar silhouette. Q, the enigmatic figure from Third Strike, seemingly connected to G through visual similarities and animations. This shared vision of a drowned world suggests a convergence of destinies, and perhaps with G not as a prophet or savior, but the cause of the world's end. But in what ways could Ingrid and Viper's stories tie in with those of G and Q? Here are some of my rough ideas. Let's take Q first. The masked robotic fighter, dressed like a detective, spotted at multiple crime scenes around the globe, occasionally at the same time. That last part seems pretty important, given Ingrid's own ability to travel through time and space. Whether Q is man or machine, he may well have stolen, or even been given the ability, to travel through space and time. A power taken from the place that Ingrid originally comes from. Having such a power would make him a useful tool, either as a spy or assassin for someone with plans of world domination or destruction. It would also then be possible that he's a former prisoner from beyond time and space, originally captured by Ingrid, who now arrives on Earth to bring him back into custody. His mask may have been placed on him in order to suppress his powers. It could even be G who was the prisoner, or he could be a being like Ingrid, similar to her relationship with the antagonist, Death, from the cancelled Capcom Fighting All-Stars, a being that travelled to Earth and created Q to act as his eyes and ears around the globe. His own power could also stem from one of Ingrid's crests, perhaps installed in G's own space station, beaming energy back down to Earth. Given that she excels at espionage and tracking down criminals and their organizations, Viper would make a useful ally for Ingrid, utilizing her own connections and resources to aid the messenger from the stars. Of course, G himself could be innocent, unwittingly stumbling upon a power that gradually, over time, he loses control of, the increasingly unstable energy attracting the attention of Ingrid, who, much like her story in Alpha 3 Max, comes to Earth to retrieve or seal the power before it's too late. And thanks to the magic of time travel, this might allow for Q to indeed be G, just from a future time, his power sealed away by the mask he wears, becoming a tool of whoever it is Ingrid works for, left behind to watch over the planet in order to eliminate anyone who threatens the balance of the universe. Of course, given Q's tendency to occasionally stomp on his opponents' faces, things might still have gone awry. With the world-ending nature of G's and Rose's vision, we might also quickly consider the secret society and Gil's role in all of this, him being the so-called messiah who will save humanity. People have noted that the society has the coincidentally named G Project and G File, which was written by Gil, outlining the society's plans for the future. However, with how certain events play out in the timeline, it seems like the G in G Project and G File might refer to genetics rather than the character G. This is because Gil becomes Emperor of the society during the events of Second Impact, having had the title President before. Second Impact is also where the G File is referenced in Ibuki's ending, but Gil doesn't meet G until later it seems, as his brother calls Gil Emperor in Gil's Street Fighter V story while watching him fight G on FooTube. It's this encounter where Gil recognizes G's power, commenting that he has felt it somewhere before. With the possibility of time travel involved, could it be that the Emperor had previously crossed paths with Q, and was there a remnant of G's former power still buried inside of Q? Or maybe there is something else going on. While the society has granted the title of Mankind's Savior to Gil, there is the distinct possibility that they miscalculated, having based their decision on prophecy and eugenics. Could G be the true Messiah mentioned in the prophecies, born outside of the society? He does have visions of the end of the world after all, whereas Gil relies on the texts of the society to guide his actions. And maybe he recognizes G's power as it continues to echo through the halls of the secret society, left behind by the previous true Emperor. So if G is the society's true Messiah born outside of their purview, it could be the lack of structure, the kind imposed by the society through their intense training of would-be emperors, that causes G to lose control of his powers, ultimately drawing Ingrid's attention. Whatever the case may be, Sea Viper also has the society in her crosshairs, and so any secrets and or revelations regarding it could well come from her. Though if Jury is telling the truth, and she and Viper really are working together, then Viper's story may remain entangled with the remnants of Shadowloo, investigating its scattered factions, all while remaining unaware of the catastrophe looming just beyond the horizon. Street Fighter has always been a series about rivalries, Ryu and Sagat, Bison and Guile, Rufus and the fighting game community. But beneath the fists and fireballs, there are deeper conflicts, about control, fate, and the cost of power. Sea Viper and Ingrid couldn't be more different. One, a down-to-earth agent navigating real-world conspiracies, the other a mysterious figure who may exist beyond time. but in the strange space between science and prophecy, their paths may lead to the same place. G, Q, Rose, the secret society, the world on the cusp of destruction, and now Year 3 DLC brings new questions to the surface. Is the flood inevitable, or can it still be stopped? Something is coming, and the world of Street Fighter may never be the same. So let me know in the comments below, how do you think Ingrid and C Viper will alter the story of Street Fighter? Will they tie into the fate of the world, or something much more mundane? And if you enjoyed this session of Street Fighter lore and theorizing about Street Fighter's future, drop a like and share with your fellow world warriors. Subscribe for more thematic character lore, and we'll see you in the next battle. Until next time, be excellent to yourselves and one another, and I'll see you soon.